What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
For the first time, the Infiniti FX was shown at the New York Auto Show in 2002. The car, equipped with powerful V6 and V8, was clearly aimed at the North American market. But it was with this model that Infiniti's active expansion into the Old World markets began. However, a year earlier at the same show, a concept developed by designer Mamoru Aoki under the theme Bionic Cheetah was demonstrated. Mamoru Aoki has indeed managed to create a very striking and memorable image with a hood that occupies almost a third of the length of the not insignificant car. Technically, the crossover with the factory code S50 was built on the rear-wheel drive platform Infiniti FM with longitudinal placement of the powertrain and received automatically connected front-wheel drive, fully independent suspension and powerful engines. By the way, 370Z Sports Coupe was built on the same platform. But we are interested in the second generation of Infiniti FX, factory code S51, which appeared in 2008. By this time, the model has managed to win worldwide fame, and the concern has shifted the focus of market activity from North America to Europe. That is why Geneva was chosen as the premier site. Design of the novelty was still engaged in Mamoru Aoki, so the car retained the basic proportions, design findings and style of the Bionic Cheetah, i.e. long hood, displaced to the rear inhabited volume and a clear arc-shaped top line of side glazing, but received headlights of more complex shape and a new design of the front end. From the predecessor, the car inherited a V-shaped 3.5-litre 6 VQ35HR, but the power of this motor was increased from 280 to 307 horsepower. In addition, a new V8 VK50 VE with an output of 400 horsepower was installed under the hood. The previous generation was equipped with a not so powerful V8 VK45DE, producing 320 horsepower, and in 2009, the range of motors was supplemented by a European V6 VQ37 VHR for 3.7 litres and 333 horsepower. These engines were paired with the classic 7-speed hydro-mechanical gearboxes RE7A01A in the case of 3.5 and 3.7-litre 6s, and RE7A01B with a 5-litre V8. In addition, the front suspension was radically redesigned. Instead of McPherson struts, there are twin A-arms. In 2010, the engine range was supplemented by a V-shaped 6-cylinder turbo diesel V9X with a capacity of 3.0 litres, capable of developing 238 horsepower and producing 550 Newton-meters of torque. This engine, designed specifically for European markets, was the first diesel engine on Infiniti cars. Initially, all Infiniti FX were assembled at the plant in the Japanese city of Kaminokawa, Tochigi Prefecture, but in 2012, given the successful sales in the Russian market, the model was assembled at the Nissan plant in St. Petersburg. The entire lineup of the Infiniti FX family had very rich equipment, and the FX50S version was equipped with an active rear-wheel steering system. The history of the FX model ended in 2014. The car received the designation QX and was produced for 3 more years. In essence, the car has not changed, so everything said below can be extrapolated to the QX70, although we will focus on the pre-reformed FX. These premium sports crossovers aged 8 to 12 years can be bought on the secondary market at quite a decent price and often in quite acceptable technical condition. For diesel FX30D 2012 to 2013 year asked from 1.25 to 2.35 million rubles, for the most common FX37 2010 to 2013 years from 1 and 1 to 3.3 million, the most powerful and fast FX50 2008 to 2009 year of release sell for 1.05 to 2.3 million, well as FX35, also 208 to 2009 years, cost from 800,000 to 1.7 million rubles. It is clear that the purchase on the secondary market of an exceptionally fast car that can accelerate to 105.7-6 and 9 seconds can bring a lot of pleasure, but, at the same time, can also cause a serious blow to the pocket. So is it worth the risk? Let's see what their owners write about their iron horses. Unfortunately, not a very family car in connection with what, in fact, and have to sell, writes the author of one of the reviews. And he has certain reasons for this. The fact is that the only car in the family has to solve many problems, from daily trips to work to long trips on vacation and delivery of elderly parents to the dacha and with seedlings. And here the owners of Infiniti FX will have to face a number of design features of this car. Before deciding to buy FX, we strongly advise you to open the fifth door, look carefully at the luggage compartment and make sure that its volume corresponds not to almost 5-meter car, but rather to a compact hatchback B-Class, 376 litres. Well, since FX is a rather youthful car in its essence, and we will talk about it more, the question of transportation of baby strollers and other snowcats is quite acute for young families. Alas, in this regard, the FX will not be able to please its owners, questions only to the trunk, 380 litres, a baby stroller barely fits, while scratching everything around, minuses, the trunk, it is almost none. A couple of large bags and that's it, the stroller can only fit a baby cane, a family with 2 children can fit with reservations. About the small trunk, in which not every stroller will fit, trunk, it is better to consider that there is no. It took me a lot of effort to cram a baby stroller and a suitcase in there, small trunk, a baby stroller fits only with the wheels off, complain young parents. But problems arise in other life situations as well. The trunk, of course, is not big enough for bulky cargo, but supermarket bags fit clearly. But when it was necessary to change the tires, of course, my wheels did not go in, I had to call friends in larger cars. In fact, a replacement set of tires, according to other owners, can still be transported, but only by folding the second row seats. Of course, different people treat the size of the trunk differently. Someone assures that the trunk is not big, but it is quite enough. I took my relatives to the airport, loaded about 9 not small bags in it. Yes, only the bags were visible in the interior mirror, but it was possible to drive. The trunk is small, but it is enough to go to a camping site with 2 children, that is for things and products. I do not want to put building materials and other oversized cargoes in such a car. Someone is simply not too concerned about this issue, a small trunk. For me, this disadvantage is purely theoretical, as I usually carry a sports bag with me at most. There is almost no trunk, but I did not take the car for the sake of the trunk, so I don't care. A couple of suitcases or 3 medium bags will fit there, and okay, I don't take sprouts to the dacha, my wife and I are too, that's why I took an impractical and with a small trunk, but a stylish car. And still it is offensive, the trunk is irrelevant to me, but in the same Miranchik, not to mention Audis and Cruisers, it was, yes simply was. And in the fin again, the cargo capacity of any car can be expanded, so, as the author of one of the reviews wrote, the trunk is modest, but it is enough for everyday needs, and for long-distance trips you can always throw a Thule box on the roof and take away anything at all. I needed a big move and had to buy a roof rack. I bought the biggest, black and beautiful, so as not to ugly the handsome guy. But in their reviews the owners directly write, for those who are used to transport everything from doors to firewood on their car, the trunk of Infiniti FX will be a disappointment. The owners are not too happy about the capacity of the interior itself, especially the second row. In terms of practicality, it is a useless car, only if you drive around the city for the sole. Those who are of large build will be cramped in the salon. In fact, the car is for 2 people. Seats in the back about as on the 3rd row of normal cars. To take someone 3rd 4th passenger further 500 kilometers I do not advise. This car for short-term travels on smooth roads for 2 people, driver and front passenger. For a family, especially with 2 children, it is not the best option. Rear passengers in FX feel very uncomfortable on uneven roads. The developed transmission tunnel, the wheel arches and the lack of legroom interfere. We started to receive complaints from rear passengers that there is nowhere to put their feet. The author drives with the seat position maximally lowered. I tried to sit behind myself in winter time. Indeed, the nuance has a place. But the configuration and size of the rear doors are most upsetting. The rear door opening is narrow. In order to sit comfortably or to put a child in a car seat, the door should be open to the full, which is not possible everywhere. I tried to sit on the back seat, it worked out from the 2nd time, and to get out from the 3rd. I was glad in my mind that I wasn't the one to ride there. Imagine what your elderly parents or, God forbid, your spouse's parents will say to you when loading them for delivery to the Dacia. In general, despite the lack of complete unanimity, the collective internet mind comes to the following conclusion: Infiniti FX is a car for young, active and fashionable people who appreciate power, speed and comfort. It is a kind of adult crossover, but to uncles it has not grown up yet. Weekend car and distant trips by a small company created exactly for a man and not for cargo or mother-in-law, so if you need to carry boxes in the trunk and use the car as a working, it will not suit you. Buy better the same Pathfinder and carry their refrigerators, washing machines, building materials and other things, and for trips on long distances in a big company, look for a minivan. Infiniti FX has completely different advantages. There can be no unanimity in the assessment of appearance. Nevertheless, the authors of the overwhelming number of reviews speak about the appearance of the Infiniti FX exclusively in an enthusiastic tone. The appearance is a cosmos. The most important thing, the FX has an unusual look, just a bomb. The appearance of the car is a separate song. It is everything, and character, and dynamics, at the same time smoothness of lines, boldness and status, all over the world. Everyone recognizes this car is very beautiful. I still look and enjoy, it is so beautiful that I forgive her even Zubobo dribble no hard driving. One of the reasons why I bought Finnic, its appearance. It attracts not only those around you, but you yourself. This hood is wave-shaped, you drive and admire it almost the whole way. In general, the network has enough raptures about cunning and predatory Japanese eyes, brutality of clear lines and elegance of style. But then the differences begin. Firstly, not everyone likes the design of Infiniti FX, and those who are not delighted with the appearance of the car can be found even among quite loyal owners. The appearance on a lover. I don't like it even though I bought it. I cannot feel some kind of charisma or something. But my wife, for example, when she sees the FX in the stream, cannot refrain from exclaiming, "God, what a freak." However, the originality and brightness of FX design is not denied even by those who do not like the car. But this brightness has a downside: you can get tired of it. I am morally tired of the aggressive, eye-catching appearance. I liked the car at the time of purchase, but now I don't like it, as the design is already boring. Indeed, in many reviews the authors write that the car attracts the eyes of passers-by, at least neighbors on a traffic flow, but not all consider that it is so good. You will not stay without attention on the road for sure, if it, certainly, you need it. And that's the second thing. Thirdly, there are serious discrepancies in assessing the relevance of this design. Some are absolutely sure that this design is ahead of its time and has been created for decades. It looks great even after 7 years, actual exterior. Despite the fact that more than 10 years have passed since the release of Infiniti FX in 51 body, the car still looks very fresh. The Japanese in 2008 came up with a design for decades ahead of time, so even now, in 2022, the design of the elegant tank, without a doubt, causes admiration. Its uniqueness is that the car 2008 model year still looks relevant and still has not undergone changes, and is sold in virtually the same form. But not everyone thinks so. 4 years ago owners wrote in reviews that it is time to change the body. 10 years as it is, all the same, and today many people consider such design with hypertrophied long hood and displaced back the main volumes outdated. Finally, the FX body has purely practical disadvantages. Let's leave aside the huge hood, which prevents not too experienced drivers to feel the dimensions of the car. We will touch upon this issue. It is much more important that, according to many owners, Finnic is quite dirty. A peculiar wedge-shaped front part of the car with a small front overhang creates an additional problem in the course of overcoming deep puddles at a speed of more than 40 km per hour. The puddle literally covers the car with a wave. Neighbors on a stream go quietly, and I have to wipe myself with wipers. Comes to put mudguards, a body strongly splashes on sides and behind. In bad weather all gets covered with mud. More dirty I have not met, owners write. This has its own consequences. If the car is dirty, to get out of it so that not to dirty pants, it is difficult, even if you know how, and if you do not know, it is impossible. However, it is still worth quoting the point of view of one of the owners, who wrote in his review, the design of Finnic itself is far from ordinary. I know people who can't stand it, but there are also those who like it very much. The average is not given, that is, it in any case causes emotions. And there will always be those who will write, I had love at first sight with this car. When I saw it for the first time on the street, I immediately decided I should take it. For almost 10 years of ownership, neither the appearance nor the interior has bored me. The problem with brakes in general and brake discs in particular was characteristic of the first-generation FX/S50 and, according to the owners, the Japanese have fixed the operational problems with the braking system of the first-generation FX. But, it seems, not completely. The problem with brakes is not fixed, but it became better. So the problem still remains. Very stressful brake discs. I don't understand why the Japanese have such a big problem with these damn discs, they are always driving. I immediately changed all brake discs and pads to the original ones, and after 2500 km they behaved so that the steering wheel was beating at 100 km per hour. I bought new brake discs at 50,000 km as the old ones were killed, and, as you know, grinding does not help. At the next service station they estimated the wear of pads at 50%, and everything would be all right if it were not for the fact that at the next service station to change the brake discs. What, the front ones, for the second time? Are they made of chipboard? Operation is moderate. I do not brake to the characteristic smell of pads. The owners do not like the efficiency of brakes as a whole. Full respect to the brakes of the car and the stock, selected junk for driving on FX are not suitable at all. Nissan has burned off, having put on the car weighing 2 tons, single piston calipers and not very large discs. So what to do? To drive slowly and sadly, so this option does not suit young and energetic owners categorically. No, it is ridiculous. Why did I buy such a car to drive slowly? There are 3 ways to treat the problem. You can regularly engage in brake disc grinding and brake pads replacement, but such operation is not enough for a long time. The second way, replacement of brake discs and pads. You can combine these 2 approaches, stock 3 to 4 sets of discs and constantly grind them, that is, work for a car service. And finally, the leader in terms of money spent and effectiveness is installing sport brake kits on the front wheels. Just sports discs will cost 30,000, full sets, together with calipers, 10 times more expensive. Nevertheless, some people are already thinking about replacing the rear brakes, and the description of the cars for sale includes installed sports discs, for example, IP Racing, or Akebono brakes. In addition, experienced owners recommend to carefully monitor the amount of grease on the fingers of calipers after buying a car. You need to pull off the dust cover on the caliper finger yourself or at the service and fill it with solidol. Insufficient amount of grease leads to the fact that the pins become wedged, they begin to move with difficulty or do not move at all, as a result of which the pads remain in a jammed state and the discs very quickly begin to burn. But FX50 owners note another problem. Somewhere around 60% of pad wear, the brake system malfunction light starts blinking, while the brake fluid level remains normal. And everything would be fine, but after a few seconds, the stabilization and rear-wheel steering mechanism disengages. Another problem is associated with the VQ35HR and VQ37VHR gasoline atmospheric engines. In general, owners characterize them as trouble-free and extremely reliable, but they also have their Achilles heel, paper oil channel gaskets. By about 200,000 kilometers, or even earlier, these gaskets can be squeezed out with the subsequent inevitable oil starvation and severe consequences. The engine begins to kill itself quickly, and the final chord is usually the scuffing of the crankshaft. And worn camshafts, shaft beds in the cylinder head, severe wear of the piston will leave no chance for inexpensive repair. All this is aggravated by the fact that motors do not have oil level gauges, and its presence and condition can be assessed only by looking under the hood and pulling out the dipstick. Replacement of paper gaskets with metal ones costs about 30 to 40,000 rubles on a turnkey basis. On very many cars for sale, this operation has already been done, and owners of cars with diesel V9X and 5-liter V8 VK50VE cannot worry at all. Almost 100% of owners express in their reviews full satisfaction with the comfort in the cabin, first of all, for the driver and front passengers. First of all, they note the luxurious, in their words, sport seats with additional controllable thigh and torso support and adjustable hamstring support. In such seats you can spend more than 1 hour behind the wheel, the maximum distance traveled behind the wheel without a break. 2,000 kilometers without problems and tension. Even after a dozen hours behind the wheel, my back feels great. On long runs you do not get tired, the seats with good support. And retractable leg pillow, and in addition, with ventilation. There are no complaints about the mutual location of controls. The steering column is adjustable for reach and height, with memory. Seat adjustment, with memory, in addition to the standard settings and adjustable lateral support of both the upper and lower part of the seat. In ergonomics everything is super, everything is at hand, very comfortable. Seat adjustments are enough for my eyes. A little bit, of course, the ranges of adjustment of a steering wheel on departure are a little bit small, but it is already picky. They say that at a certain position of the steering wheel some of it overlaps a part of the dashboard, but my adjustments do not overlap it. The owners fully approve of the quality of materials used for interior design. Here, dear reader, is the kingdom of an Arabian sheikh. Designers from the land of the rising sun do not eat their bread in vain. Natural perforated leather, soft plastic, inserts under aluminum. About inserts under wood I do not see the point to argue, but on the general background they are also categorically magnificent. The quality is excellent. Everything is made very nicely and carefully adjusted. The design does not cause a feeling of oldness, although the car is new. Leather, wood, sunroof, display, music, everything is excellent. Perforated leather is very high quality. I weigh 110 kilograms and holds, blowing when it's hot. Lighting is nice, everything pleases. I walk up to it every time as if I bought it yesterday. What fascinates him most in the interior is the analog clock. Everyone who sits inside pays attention to it. Of course, there are some censures. For example, there are complaints that only the driver got the electrically adjustable lumbar support. For example, the Japanese saved money. Or absence of heating of a steering wheel. Or simple plastic buttons, copied from Nissan X-Trail and maybe even from Micra. And there are a lot of buttons. The equipment is rich, but the scatter of buttons, especially in the area of the left knee, is surprising. Do not expect intuitive control. As in the same Volvo, it will be necessary to study the manual. It doesn't cause any big inconveniences, but it is worth to pay attention to it. Suddenly it will be something radically inconvenient for you. In the phone book is not made normal Russification, as a result of which you cannot select a contact by letter and have to leaf through the entire list. But this is all trifles. Much more complaints about the work of the climate control system. Climate control sometimes works strangely. Apparently, it somehow takes into account the flow of sunlight and adds cold. As a result, having fixed 22 degrees, I get snow whirls around my head or stuffy air. At the same time, for some reason in auto mode the climate itself decides that it is not necessary to blow in legs and switches off. If you say that it is necessary, the temperature sensor is made crookedly, as a result of which the cold goes at setting on 16 degrees and at 17 degrees the air goes not cool, but warm. Again, owners grumble about the seat heating system. In FX it is not just warmers. Heating is carried out with the help of the same system as ventilation in the heat, just the air is supplied already warm. So, owners complain that heating starts only after the engine is warmed up. And it also happens that the blowing of the passenger's seat is turned off literally after 2 minutes. It turns out to be a disease of all these cars. It is solved by disassembling the seat and additional cutouts in the soft cushion, without which the air simply does not pass through. And the ventilation system shuts down. The owners do not speak too highly of noise insulation. No, they do not scold it, they just grumble that in a car of a premium brand it could be better. Sound insulation, let's face it, is so bad. Despite the fact that I immediately made additional noise insulation, noise of wheels penetrates into the cabin not strongly, but a little more than expected. Noise insulation from the factory is weak. I made a new, qualitative, now it is comfortable. From weak places mention noise insulation, but the question is solved by additional noise insulation in the service. Good thing there are no problems with it now. In principle, noise insulation of the arches and doors already give the result. Besides, some lack of noise insulation is compensated by excellent acoustic system. Bose music plays well, a huge plus for me was the sound of Bose system. And also fathers of families like the presence of entertainment system for rear passengers, DVD with wireless headphones for rear passengers is a very good and useful thing, especially for children, because this device is necessary in the car. One children's movie is enough for 100 to 150 kilometers of serene and quiet journey on the highway. As for visibility, there is no complete unity here. Someone admires informative, large and wide side mirrors, and someone complains that the view in side mirrors is too small and that there is a big blind spot. Someone claims that behind wide, in accordance with the world trend, front struts and a strip of dirt, to which the wipers do not reach, a pedestrian or a car can hide. The view around the car has fallen victim to the beauty of body design. There are enough dead zones. Separately tense the situation in winter, when in the left part of a windshield the wiper, not catching up dirt to the left edge, leaves a dirty strip. Together with the left side of the windshield, this dirt once hit an SUV that was moving across at a low speed. They immediately object. The struts are really big, but personally they do not interfere with me, because the seat is moved back. I've never experienced a problem with the Phoenix's visibility. As we have already noted, the long hood with swollen wings creates some problems when parking, because of the swollen front wings. I had to get used to the dimensions for a long time, although my experience is 15 years, 300,000 kilometers in different cars. Not even to the dimensions, but to understand the place where the right front fender ends. It surprised me. But the all-round vision system helps any maneuvers very much. Cameras around the circle, view from above on the car on the monitor, are an indispensable thing in Moscow. I have climbed into such holes, hardly anyone can compete. The cameras often get dirty. It's Moscow. You go out, wipe them with a napkin, and you're happy. I know there are options. Guys put washers on them. As a compensation, very good cameras help with parking both day and night. There are no problems with parking. Parktronics together with cameras do their job. I really like the helicopter view. It's a pleasure to park in dry, clear weather. But even here there will be grumblers. Indeed, Parktronics are not available in all packages, but, according to the owners, they are still necessary. Without a Parktronic, regardless of the camera, especially the front one, it is bad. It is a shame to put Chinese crafts on a not cheap, in general, car. Parktronics are clearly not enough for this car, taking into account the lack of normal visibility both in front and behind. But most importantly, the authors of reviews are sure that it is almost unreal to find a more richly equipped car for the same money. What cars for a comparable budget have round cameras, adaptive cruise with radar, seat ventilation, electric steering wheel adjustment, and a bunch of other pluses, and all are still in good working order? So many reviews mention the Infiniti FX's stiff suspension. Only the assessment of this stiffness varies. Some people think that it is a bit stiff. The suspension has been tightened, of course, on a good road, super, but if there are pits, the suspension is quite stiff. The suspension is quite stiff. A person who owned, say, Subaru WRX will not be surprised, but the lover of American sofas will be horrified. From minuses: a rigid suspension, especially the rear. You have to pass the lounging extremely slowly, though, maybe, so it should be in a sports crossover. For me, one of the reasons of reflections about change of the car became just rigidity of finick. When you drive around the city in the daytime, you don't feel it, but when you drive long distances, it is quite noticeable. Others believe that everything is normal. The suspension is really stiff, but it does not interfere with anything. The suspension is a bit stiff, just what you need. It passes through holes normally and does not spit so hard. But if you take off at a speed of 140, you will crash, not weakly, as a stroke of a suspension is short. Personally, to me, rigidity of a suspension does not strain, even, it seems to me, it and better. You really feel the car with your fifth point, and in this car you will not get seasick. The rigidity is optimal. I do not like soft cars. The car is hard, especially in summer, on 22 discs. For many people it is a disadvantage, and they expect a miracle from the car. It won't happen. But I really like the stiffness. Comfort. It is here, but not like in Tahoe or premium sedans. The suspension is quite stiff, and many people call it tooth grinding. But don't exaggerate, it's just a stiff suspension. In any case, much depends on individual perception, so experienced owners advise, I can only warn future buyers, if you accept the stiffness of the suspension, the car will please you. But to test your feelings, take a ride on the road with bumps, waves and the like in the back seat at high speed. But the owners consider the windshield to be too soft. The car has soft glass, I confirm it 100%. I changed the windshield underhull insurance 2 times. From each tangible impact on the glass there are dots, and everything would be all right, but from them the wipers quickly deteriorate. I have never seen such a thing. I change the wipers almost every 2 or 3 months, and still all the glass is in stripes. Everything is covered with pebbles and damn sand. In sunny weather you can't see a damn thing. I enter the tunnel or parking lot by feel, hoping that there is no one's expensive ass is not standing there. I thought of polishing, but the chips were too deep. It's good that hull insurance allows you to change one part once a year without certificates. The situation is aggravated by the fact that the designers refused from washer nozzles directly on the windshield wipers, as on the first generation FX. There the liquid went directly to the rubber bands, which excluded several swipes on the dry glass. On cars of S51 generation there are nozzles of the usual type, and even working not the best way, I had to change the wiper blades in winter. The washer does not pour on the whole glass and is not regulated well. I did not notice how the windshield was already rolled. How great it was on the old Infiniti, it poured directly on the wipers. Dynamics and speed, speed and dynamics. That's why owners appreciate Infiniti FX with all engine options. Even the slowest of the family, the diesel FX30D, accelerates to 108.3 seconds. As a result, the owners of these cars are quite satisfied. Dynamics in the city is enough in 99% of cases, outside the city in 95%, but I will note at once that I am already to 50 and traffic light races I have had enough in 90th inch. Dynamics are plain, the road holds splendidly, on paid Leningradka or New Riga 200 to 210, confidently, at a traffic light all Jeeps in the area of 3, 5 liters and diesels behind. And the owners of gasoline cars, which are able to really bullet, FX35 accelerates to 100 km/h in 6.9 seconds, FX37 for 6 and 8, and FX50 for 5.7 seconds, and sin to complain. So they don't. It really takes off on the highway. Overtaking is its element. It does it confidently, without a tear. The engine 7 liters is very powerful. Torsion. There is always a reserve of traction at any speed, in the city and on the highway. It can drive smoothly and quietly at low speeds. It can explode from a traffic light and go to the point. Everything is beautiful and chocolate, as the golden youth says. The Infiniti is just right. And it can leave from traffic lights, and there is always a reserve of power at any speed. After 100 km/h dynamics is still excellent. Overtaking on the highway is a pleasure. In their reviews, owners note the coordinated work of the adaptive 7-speed gearbox and motors. The adaptive gearbox is great. It adapted to me and its response impressed me. Infiniti FX 2008 to 13, but the owners are rather skeptical about the possibility of manual control of the gearbox. Paddle shifters are convenient, though it is almost unreal to beat a high-speed automatic, in my opinion. Paddles seem to be nothing more than a toy. I practically do not use them. At the same time, the owners note that the speed in the car is not felt. It even has some disadvantage. You can relax too much with unaccustomed driving 120 km/h, as if you are going 20 km/h. At speed, owners realize that they do not suffer from a tooth-shatteringly stiff suspension for nothing. It is a payment for excellent controllability. There is nothing to complain about. The steering wheel provides exact control of a trajectory of movement and is pleasant in sensations. On a highway you bump into Cruisac or RX, they for some reason at once begin to gain speed, but at the first small turn always break down to 80 to 100, and FX it is not necessary at all. Accordingly, you overtake, steering with one hand, and there the driver with 2 hands in a steering wheel is caught, as if in races participates. In general, manageability, 5 points. This not small car is perfectly managed. The steering wheel is tight enough and informative. It goes into corners like a light sedan. FX50 with its rear-wheel control system is especially good in this respect. Handling is not like a crossover, but like a sports sedan. It holds the road perfectly, there's nothing to do at 130 into a corner, the rear wheels are steered, and you fly in like butter. It is clear that RAS, system of automatic rear-wheel steering, shows itself only at active maneuvering at high speed. In this case, the trajectory, set by a steering wheel, is passed more precisely than on usual automobile. But Infiniti FX has its own peculiarities, especially in winter. In normal mode it is a rear-wheel drive car, but also in difficult mode the front drive is connected not at once, but with some delay. As well as the stabilization system, the S drags in winter, so the connected front drive is only a name, it does not have time to pick up properly. All-wheel drive on Infiniti for winter is really terrible, especially for people who are not prepared and have never driven on the rear drive before. It is a fact, if you are not accustomed to the rear drive, do not turn off stabilization, especially on a slippery road, a light press on gas in a turn the car is perfectly sent in a skid. But as soon as you feel the car, there will be no desire to turn it on. Indeed, many believe that this is the kind of all-wheel drive system that allows an experienced driver to get the most out of it. For me, it's better to skid than to drift the front axle. Here and skid is small, and from a skid it is possible to leave on traction. There is an intriguing feature on a slippery road. At pressing on a gas it first begins to lead a little rear axis, and only then the front is included and corrects a trajectory. I would even refer it to the pluses. Electronics intervenes not at once that at sharp pedaling on snow or ice gives to the prepared person joy, and to the unprepared, longing and full pants of unpleasant impressions. It does not cause any problems in reasonable winter operation. You just need to remember that you have 2 tons in your hands, initially the rear PR. As for the capabilities of the car off the asphalt, the authors of reviews agree that it is possible to drive off the road, but very carefully. I, believing in the super off-road abilities of the car, decided to drive through a puddle in tension. The result is logical. It was possible to pass a little further than the middle rear wheels in this nice slurry sit almost on a hub. Front centimeters on 15 to 20 inch, obstacles to force only by a move. FX can't drive in tension. Infiniti FX is not for off-road machine, it is a fact, but everything depends on the driver behind the wheel. I climbed on it in snowdrifts in which the doors do not open, and got out without anyone's help. And I needed good mud in the woods. It is also all right. Of course, it will not pull 3 wheels, and it will not go fishing somewhere in Yakutia. FX off-road abilities are quite enough for everyday use, even if it is necessary to stir a little mud. At the same time, the capabilities of diesel cars are somewhat higher than gasoline cars. It is generally believed that FX is contraindicated to move off the asphalt, but diesel can, within reason. I drove both on a spreading soil and on snowy virgin ground, and hung it so that the rear wheel was a meter from the ground. Everything is okay. Well, and in the city FX owners feel very confident, including in winter. In winter you still pass where others are tugging and swearing impotently. On a snowy road the car goes confidently enough. From the yards covered with snow it leaves on a hurrah. Passability suits me. It is necessary to understand that it is a crossover, and not a full-size Jeep. I am not going to drive it in swamps, but to jump on a curb, to park on the uncleared parking lot, and to overcome a light off-road. In its forces, I did not check the passability especially, but, again, it is definitely not an all-terrain vehicle. It is a beautiful car for a city, comfortable. However, taking into account the all-wheel drive, you can feel confident in winter. It does not pretend to be an off-roader for swamps, but never got stuck in any snowdrift. Of course, in the city you have to take into account the dimensions of the car. But automatically lowering side mirrors and all-round vision system help in maneuvers. Yes, the camera resolution is not the limit of dreams, but, gentlemen, there is all-round vision. I can see everything perfectly. I can squeeze to a curb without scratching discs and pass in a narrow yard, perfectly observing the approach of the front bumper to an obstacle. Yes, the picture is a bit grainy, but I see everything and navigate perfectly, and the turning radius is not so great for a car with a length of 4.8 meters and a wheelbase of 2.85 meters. It is 5.9 meters. The overwhelming majority of authors of reviews realize that under the hood of their cars sits a whole herd, and not some ponies, but full-fledged trotters, and this herd must be fed. And all the same, only owners of diesel FX30D are satisfied with fuel efficiency. Most of all, the fuel consumption pleased in winter. With all heaters, stoves and other things on the highway, 7.6L 100 km in the city and traffic jams, a little more, about 10.6L 100 km, fuel consumption in general I consider good, the city, about 13 to 14, it is pushing in traffic jams in the center. The highway, about 9 to 10L 100 km, the city consumption is 11 liters without economy. On the highway 8.5 liters, fuel consumption in the city 10 to 13 liters, on the highway 7 to 9 liters in Moscow, with daily operation. I refuel not more than once a week, and mostly once in a week and a half, I usually do not a stomp, and therefore the average consumption is 9 liters, which is very good. It is clear that different drivers have slightly different figures, but their order is the same, less than 10 liters on the highway. A little more than 10 in the city. But everyone is pleased with the autonomy of fuel. The range on the highway on one tank in almost any modes is 1,000 kilometers. If you hustle and save money, you can make 1,200 kilometers. Somehow I traveled 3,000 kilometers in 3 days, with visits to cities, and even got into traffic jams. I traveled the whole distance on 3 tanks. But owners of FX35 frankly attribute the consumption to significant disadvantages. It is understandable, power is less, dynamics is worse than in FX37, and even more so than in FX50, and consumption is almost the same. In principle, the authors of reviews are ready to agree on the figure of 17 liters 100 km, but many argue that there are also significantly more high fuel consumption is largely related to urban driving in a sluggish mode, traffic lights, traffic jams, about 20 liters. Gasoline burned in Moscow at least 17 liters and on average about 20 liters per 100. In the regions I used to burn 20 to 25 liters in general, as gasoline is bad. Owners of 5-liter FX50s, as a rule, do not discuss consumption. What is there to discuss? They knew what they were going for, buying this powerful horse, and were ready to feed it. Accordingly, and the consumption of about 20 liters 100 km is perceived by them with Olympic calmness, they stick an American sticker. To hell with fuel economy on the rear window and rejoice in life. However, this appetite can be curbed. For this purpose it is necessary only to step on a throat of the driver's temperament, not to jump from a place, as at the start of highwaying race and on a highway to observe traffic rules and to use cruise control more often, I managed to achieve once on a highway 11, 2L 100 km, there is a photo from a phone. Consumption on a highway has pleased, a motor run SPB, Helsinki and back. Has taken away only 115 liters, 13.5 per hundredth, I expected the worst. But the owners of the most massive FX37 like to argue about the consumption and call very different figures. Guys, who writes that? The consumption of the Infiniti FX37 on the highway the 9th of June, 10 liters, tell me, how do you get it? I did not work out. On average I had on the highway consumption showed within 12-14, 6 liters, this is taking into account accelerations when overtaking, braking and standing at traffic lights and railway crossings. But in urban conditions everything is much sadder, friends, 19 to 23 liters, consumption in the city is 19 to 21 liters, not less, all. The talk about 15 to 17 liters does not correspond to reality. I will explain. The matter is that if you are fond of dynamic driving, and you can't drive it slowly and stand in traffic jams, the consumption will be just so. Route 14 to 16, it is quite realistic. Gasoline consumption is horsey, I think, at the same time on the highway, 120 to 160 km per hour. From 11 to 14 liters per 100 km, which in general for 333 ms and 3.7 liters is decent. But in the city, as a BTR 80, traffic jams, air conditioning, tapper to the floor, and comes up to 23 liters 100 km, the 10-year old car has a normal consumption, 20 to 22 liters at tapper to the floor, in vegetable mode, 18 liters. I can attach photos. I don't believe that 333 and 400 power motors burn 14 liters, it is impossible a priori. Though economists argue with them, I admit that every car has its own appetite. 7 years of ownership of FX37, highway, speed 108 to 109, pensioner style of driving due to the presence of means of video fixation of violations of speed limits for traffic police, consumption 10.8 to 11.2 liters. At a speed of 140 km per hour with cruise, the consumption is 11.2 liters. Urban, mixed mode, 14 liters per 100 km, 14.6 L 100 km in the city in winter in traffic jams. There is no need to argue with me. I do not believe in the FX consumption of 20 or more liters, and I will never believe it. Anyway, Infiniti FX with atmospheric gasoline engines consume a lot of fuel. The mileage on one tank is about 500 kilometers, and the purchase of fuel costs at least 10 to 12,000 rubles a month. How much these expenses will hit your wallet, everyone decides for himself. But in any case, you can take comfort in the fact that you will not face additional expenses on oil. Motors usually do not eat oil until they die, and even owners of 10-year-old cars can do without oil refilling from change to change. Very many authors of reviews, talking about their cars, emphasize not on speed, handling or convenience for the driver, but on the emotions that the possession of this car gives. Sometimes they are short but very capacious phrases: an excellent sports car, which gives a lot of bright emotions from dynamic, comfortable and, most importantly, predictable driving. In 1 hour you part with money and get a friend, yes, a friend, a brother. A car Infiniti FX, only positive emotions. Feelings from driving, a complete delight. For cheap you can ride with emotions. Brief summaries are as follows: truly, the Phoenician is the chariot of the gods. I ride and my mouth is up to my ears. Appearance, dynamics, roar of V6, wow. If you are young at heart, it will not leave you indifferent. In a word, Infiniti FX is a concentration of bright positive emotions which compensate for many shortcomings and make you forget about expenses. But owners warn, when choosing this car, do not go for emotions from the appearance and passport power. It is necessary to feed it, it is necessary to steer it, and for all this it is necessary to pay. That's first of all. And secondly, Infiniti FX is not only a car emotion, but also a car provocateur, and it is not always worth to give in to these provocations. Almost every second owner among the most significant disadvantages of Infiniti FX names the size of the transport tax. Indeed, in Moscow and St. Petersburg, FX35 owners have to pay 46,050 rubles annually, FX37 owners, 49,950 rubles, and FX50, 60,000 rubles, and it's good that it's so much. Not so long ago this model was on the list of cars subject to luxury tax. More or less calmly relate to the tax issue only owners of diesel FX30D, they have to pay 17,850 rubles. And if 10 years ago, when FX were quite expensive, but cheaper than many direct competitors, such sums seemed quite tolerable to buyers, now, when a used sports crossover can be purchased by a person with not the highest income, such payments can become a real problem. Of course, some people will still think that the tax is quite an acceptable payment for what they get from the car. It is more relaxing for me to realize that I have a resource motor with forged camshafts than to rejoice in tax savings. Yes, the tax is almost 50,000 rubles, but I decided for myself, while I am young, why not? Why do I need 6,333 horses and such a car? If you bought this car, then 50,000 a year to pay, I think, will not be difficult. From the minuses I can name only tax and expense. But, as they say, the person who gets such car should not worry about it. Having compared Finnick with classmates, I have realized that in one case you pay tax and do not worry about anything, in another case you pay for repair of turbines, pneumas, electric racks, robots, and for other things. Owners write in their reviews, and there are quite a lot of statements of this kind. But there are also those who are concerned about the amount of tax in a very real way, tired morally of the tax of 50,000 rubles. And I'm just tired of driving. Yes, at first everything pleases me, dynamics, comfort. And then I get tired of paying the tax of 45 to 60,000 a year. And it is not only the transportation tax that will have to be paid. You will have to take out compulsory insurance, and its cost is affected not only by the length of accident-free driving, but also by power. And the price of hull insurance the authors of reviews call simply cosmic. A couple of years ago, for example, for this service, asked up to 650,000 rubles. But even in 2022, the owners believe that the options found at a price of 80,000 to 100,000 rubles is a great luck. In fact, it was possible to buy a good option, just over 100,000 for a full set for a year with adequate coverage and service without a deductible. This is without theft. I protected myself against it otherwise. And many people believe that it is simply impossible to drive on our roads without hull insurance, a drunken fool with no money and no license can easily leave anyone without a car worth hundreds of thousands of rubles. The price of insurance is not commensurate with the possible loss. Finally, the price of maintenance. Here, too, owners give very different figures, from 10 to 15 to 40,000. Naturally, they are looking for a cheaper service. In general, for TO60 I gave 23,000 rubles instead of 37,000 rubles. Offered on the phone, Infiniti's price tag is inhuman, up to 45 to 47,000 rubles. Of course, there are always options to save money. For example, you can buy the necessary consumables on the internet, and you can be serviced not at the company's Infiniti service stations, but at Nissan stations. I recommend to be serviced exclusively in Nissan, 1.5 or even 2 times cheaper, personally checked. For example, Nissan cabin filter, 1200 rubles, Infiniti, well, with the smell of cherry pit, 6245 rubles. To prescribe pressure sensors, 1000 rubles, Nissan, 2400 Infiniti. Comments are superfluous. The same applies to the current repairs. Yes, original glass and body parts are very expensive, but at least in the case of windows there are quite adequate replacement options. The original windshield costs about 60,000 rubles. But almost always there is an alternative. I, for example, put an excellent glass for 5,000 rubles and gave 2,500 for installation. But in any case, a person who decides to buy a used Infiniti FX should think everything over and compare the possible costs with their income. In the internet there are even statements that in order to adequately maintain the Infiniti FX, you need to get in the neighborhood of 35 to 45,000 rubles a month. To me, such estimates seem unreasonably optimistic. To be honest, I can hardly imagine the owners of all models of the FX family consider reliability to be the most important advantage of Infiniti FX. This is the opinion of those who bought the car new in the showroom, and this is the opinion of owners of cars that have already been in other people's hands. Mileage is 120,000, zero problems. I will summarize: absolutely problem-free car. The car 2012, 3.7 gasoline, mileage 127,000. Only the front hub bearing was changed, the rest was consumables, and the most important thing is reliability. I changed only consumables. For 8 years of operation there were no serious breakdowns. I have owned the car for more than 6 years, not a single problem. Like new to this day, I took the car with a mileage of 60,000, drove another 40, for all that time I changed only consumables. For 250,000 kilometers of mileage I changed the struts around the circle twice, the hub bearings twice, and that's it. Such statements can be cited literally endlessly. Dithyrambs of reliability are heard in reviews written in 2015 to 2016, last year, and this year. The car is as simple as can be. The suspension is spring, which can never be killed by anything. The motors are God willing. The main thing here is not to force and change the oil responsibly. For 3 years we have traveled 90,000 kilometers, and I do not remember any problems, even the most innocent ones. There are no problems. In this car, that is, the running gear does not fall off, electronics is in order, the timing does not need to be changed, because the chain, the box is very reliable. Only oil should be changed once in 60,000 kilometers. The engine is also reliable. The engine is also reliable, unkillable atmospheric engine with a huge safety margin, tuning kits for 370Z, which are put on the stock engine, just to see, the box, reinforced version of which was put on Nissan Titan with the maximum authorized mass of 3,300 kilograms. Energy-consuming suspension, unpretentious electronics. Of course, anything can be broken, but there are minimum preconditions for accidental failure of various expensive units. The authors of reviews assure that with quality service, the car can last up to 300,000 kilometers without a single serious repair, without spending a couple of years in the service and without ruining the owner. Still, there are enough cars on the market with dubious documents and with stranded mileage, and simply bumped copies, if only because such cars are taken just to race, and race them in the tail and in the manner, not always observing the rules of service. Also, when buying, you should carefully check the car for criminality. These cars were often stolen, VINs were broken, fake documents were drawn up so the check will not be superfluous. Of course, it is possible to put in order and rolled copy in not the best technical condition, but it will require very serious investments. So experienced owners write, my advice to you, if you take this car, check the oil, give it to the dealer for diagnostics, check all levers and rack, and as well, if there are doubts on work of automatic transmission or something in general, refuse to buy. Although they say that Infiniti is not particularly expensive in repair and maintenance, it's all nonsense. Expensive. We would advise only those who have a great desire to have this particular car, who can do many operations with their own hands, who have a resource in the form of their own, or simply available, car service, and who are ready to spend their own time to find the necessary components at an affordable price. But the one who will overcome all problems will receive a solid reward for his labors, a fast, powerful, bright and stylish car, which will not only give driving emotions, but also will not require special investments for a long time. In conclusion, the Infiniti FX II, also known as the Infiniti QX70, presents a compelling mix of luxury, performance, and unique design that can make it an attractive choice for many buyers. However, potential owners should also weigh the drawbacks, such as maintenance costs and limited rear space. Ultimately, whether to buy or not to buy this vehicle depends on your personal preferences and priorities. By considering these 5 reasons, you can make a more informed decision that aligns with your lifestyle and needs. Thank you for watching, and we hope this guide helps you in your car buying journey.